Welcome, 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 everyone out there in podcast land. We are back with another episode of Different Strings, a guitar adjacent podcast. I am your host, Wes, along with my good friend Andy, who is also your host. Say hello, Andy.
Hello.
Fantastic. That was well done. Our topic this week is not really a topic, but we are going back to something we did in episode 10, which is answering gear page questions. And I want to reiterate that nobody involved with the gear page has condoned, blessed, or sanctioned this. We pulled the questions from the pages and we're answering them in our own inimitable fashion. But before we do that, Andy, please tell everybody where they can find us on the internet.
You can find us at differentstringspodcast.com, where if we ever get off our asses, they might find a bunch of great content. As of right now, it's getting a little dated. I need to get my act together. Sorry,
yeah, we
folks.
both do.
But you know what you could do when you go there is engage with us, send us an email, ask questions, as some folks do from time to time. So, please do that.
Yes, I'm still on a little bit of a high over Bruce sending in his question.
Yeah. We got one question from our 30 listeners and we're like, we can't get over ourselves.
Yeah.
It's
but
dope.
Because we know that these questions are probably going to run on a long time, a little bit, we're going to skip the opening act. We're going to hit this Grateful Dead style and do a 3-hour solo show with massive amounts of improvisation.
We're going to riff with no practice for a couple hours.
That's right. That's right. I made a few notes, but I didn't get too extensive here.
Same
I just kind of hit the high points that I wanted to try to remember to hit. And I'm ready. Are you ready?
Yeah. And I don't remember what we did last time, except we had a great time. But
yeah,
I don't know. Listen, folks, we don't script this show, if you can't already tell. But I think the last time we sort of picked which questions was going to, which I was going to ask and which I was going to answer, or which one. I don't know. I don't even care this time because we're both going to answer them anyway.
Right.
So
why don't you start then?
I'm gonna ask the questions, I think, and I want to hear what Wes has to say about some of these for sure. Many of them I want to hear.
Okay.
All right. So this one goes by the name of how it sounds or how it feels, and we're not talking about your junk. So Wes, if you had to choose between how a guitar sounds or how it feels when making a purchasing decision, what would you choose? And there can only be one.
There can only be one right answer.
I had an immediate reaction to this, which is, this is a bogus question because none of us would ever buy a guitar and go, oh, well, it sounds like crap, but it feels great. I mean, I don't like the question. I don't like the premise of the question. However, let's live in fantasy world for a minute. Right?
There needs to be a little of both for sure.
You absolutely have to pick a guitar based on one or the other, sound or feel. What are you going to do?
It's a binary world, base 2 world.
Mm-hmm.
I will freely admit that I've been sucked in by how a guitar sounds, but it's the feel that makes it or breaks it for me. If a guitar feels stiff and unyielding, i.e. like a Telecaster, I am unlikely to want to buy it.
How dare you, sir?
How dare I?
Well, so
just like that.
I actually right in. He's already trolling me. So first of all, I agree with you 100%. But I'm going to ask, why? Why does feel make or break it for you? I know I have an answer to that, but I want to hear what you think.
Okay. Because the best guitar to play is the one that makes you excited about playing, and a guitar that feels bad will not make you want to play it.
Mm-mm.
And that's where it comes down to it.
And I think in the past, I've probably chosen a guitar. Okay, so to be fair, I have chosen guitars that played amazing, looked great, and sounded like average.
Yeah.
But in my world, the sound of a guitar 99% of the time is easy to fix.
Yeah.
Most of the time, the sound of a guitar comes from, I mean, I get it, Mr. Paul Reed Smith, everything affects everything. And yes, but
but as long as the wood's not dead.
Mm-hmm. Change a pickup. You could change nut material if you really wanted to go all out. But to me, changing the sound of a guitar is pretty simple these days. Changing how a guitar feels, that requires a lot, like shaping the neck differently, or refret, or minimally a fret level. And there's a lot of other factors that can go into it. Like you said, dead spots on the neck, that can't always be fixed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bad wood, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So a lot of times, well, not a lot, I don't want to say a lot of times, but sometimes wood can have knots or voids. And the thing about it is it's a completely different density than the rest of the neck or the rest of
Mhm.
the body. And that can just completely throw off the resonance of the wood.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about that as much with acoustic guitars because they're cutting those really thin. Now, maybe it can happen in the neck or the heel or something, but it's minimized because most of the sound
Mhm.
of that comes from the top,
Mhm.
and if you're, you know, putting a fretboard on it and putting a truss rod in it, you're probably going to see a knot or a void,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and, but with an electric guitar, when you're doing like a one piece guitar, there's no way to know.
Mhm. Yeah. So there we go. All right. This next question is tailor made for you. Actually, I really got into answering this question.
Yeah. I think this is a good one for both of us. Question
Yeah.
number 2, hit me.
So the headline on this one is, how do I justify buying myself an expensive guitar?
And right there is where my visceral reaction to this question started,
Yeah.
but
So,
continue.
yep. So the questioner says, I'd like to get an American Professional 2 Strat. Nice. I feel guilty even thinking about spending the money on myself. Hmm. My wife has even encouraged me to get one. Nice. But I struggle with actually doing it. I'm a living room rock star. I don't even jam much with friends anymore. So it seems to spend almost $2,000 on something that only I will ever hear. Oh, it seems,
I
he
think he
said, it
left out a
seems
word.
selfish. So
Yeah.
it seems selfish to spend almost $2,000 on something that only I will ever hear. And selfish was the word he used.
Okay.
I've been avoiding buying the guitars. Here's the meat of this. I've been avoiding buying the guitars I really want and instead settle on guitars that cost less. Unfortunately, I get bored with these guitars after a short while. And he also mentioned that he sells them and then buys more and then sells them and buys more and sells that, and the loop.
He's in a loop. Yeah.
How do you folks square this away in your head so you can actually buy what you want and enjoy it? Kind of answered his question right at the end there with the loop, but
Yeah.
I also had a visceral response. So Wes, how do you justify buying yourself an expensive guitar?
Okay. But before I answer that question, let me address this guy's question statement. Number one, your wife's a keeper. Hang on to her
Mhm.
at all costs.
Bingo.
Any spouse, any partner that encourages you to do something that you love to do, you got to keep that person in your life.
Mhm.
Second thing, if you feel guilty about thinking about spending money, you need to get into therapy. You need to talk to a professional and you need to get that straightened out before you do anything else. So take the $2,000 that you're thinking about spending on this guitar, dude, and spend it on therapy. Okay.
And
Now,
and look, what I it sounds facetious. He's not kidding. And
I'm absolutely not
I
kidding.
have the same advice. I know that sounds like we're avoiding the question, but here's the truth. It's a hobby you love. You're in a loop where you're probably buying and selling and buying and selling. You've probably already spent 20 times what you would have spent if you just bought the
Oh,
thing you want.
absolutely.
And the fact that you feel that it's selfish to spend this money on yourself, I mean, that's that's not something we can help with.
Right.
If it was, if you were doing it behind your wife's back, if you were spending money that was supposed to go towards bills, if you were in debt, a different story. But
Yeah.
barring hearing those facts, and on the facts that we hear, only what we're hearing, it sounds like the problem is that you're struggling with feelings of guilt and shame tied to your hobby, and I think you need to work on that. And I think
Yeah.
if you work on it, probably, I would guess, Wes, tell me if I'm wrong, this feeling of selfishness and spending on things he likes probably isn't limited to guitars. Would you agree?
I would probably agree. I bet you he thinks the same way about when it's time to buy a car,
Yep.
you
Yep.
know,
Wouldn't be
or,
surprised.
and I get it. I get it, man. I didn't used to think like this, and then I grew up and I got married and I had a kid, and I couldn't spend money willy-nilly on myself anymore.
Mhm.
And I went into a loophole like this. I bet you this guy has lost enough money on his buy and sell loop at this point that he could
Mhm.
have bought a really high end, like a custom
Absolutely.
shop fender or a nice Paul Reed Smith
Mhm.
or uh, a Gibson or something that he would love.
Yeah.
So first of all, you don't have to justify buying any guitar. As a guitar player, buy the guitar you want to play, provided you're not being irresponsible. Do your due diligence, do your
Mhm.
research, do the best that you can to make sure that you're making a informed decision, and don't cause problems with your budget, your family, your bills, your
Mhm.
spouse, all that stuff. One of the things, the first thing I thought of when I read this was the guys, and they're all over the gear page, that talk about their wife let them buy a guitar, right? And
Yeah.
sure, maybe some of them are kidding, but that seems to me as dysfunctional as this guy feeling guilty about thinking about spending money on himself.
Mhm.
If you got to check in with another person before you spend money, there's something wrong in that relationship. Now, do I talk to my partner about when I want to buy a guitar? I absolutely do, because I like to talk to her and I get excited about stuff. And quite often she'll ask me questions that I hadn't thought about,
Mhm.
and that will color my decision on whether or not to go ahead and buy the guitar,
Hmm. How about that?
you know? But I don't I don't ask her, because I don't spend money on guitars that I need for the mortgage
Mhm.
or our insurance or, you know, the grocery store. I it's and But that requires a lot of discipline. You got to save money, you got to be careful about not spending money, that kind of stuff. And when it comes to a point like where I am right now, I did something a little irresponsible. Can I tell you about this, Andy?
This is a safe space, my friend.
You see this white Jazzmaster over my shoulder?
Yes, I do.
I bought that with my savings money, but I dipped below where I'm comfortable having my savings be,
Hmm.
which means I got to sell something to replace that money. And I
Mhm.
should have sold the guitars first
Right.
and then bought the guitar. And I probably could have done that because this belonged to a friend of mine. And if I had said, hey, listen, I got to sell this guitar before I buy yours,
He would have
he
held
would
it
have,
for you,
yeah, he would have held it for me.
but you wanted it.
And I didn't want to do that to him. Right. I
Okay.
don't
Yeah,
need to
sure.
make him suffer because I'm a little short on cash right now.
Sure.
So,
That's what I would have said to myself too.
but I also discussed it with my partner because
Mhm.
we're partners,
Mhm.
and she was just like, listen, we don't want to go below this mark, and this is going to take us below that mark. So you need to be really careful about the next thing you do.
Mhm.
And then I showed her a picture of the guitar and she said, yeah, you need to get that. She also knows the dude I bought it from. So she knows he wouldn't rip me off.
Yeah, and we were talking to Jazzmaster, not a Telecaster. If it was a Telecaster, it'd be a different story.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Although
So,
you put a matching headstock on a Telecaster and I'll at least look at it twice.
so, so I hope. I mean, the question is, how do I justify buying myself an expensive guitar? Meaning he, like, how does he do it?
Right.
But then he asked, how do we do it? How do you folks square this away?
Yeah.
So I think you answered the question very similar to how I would have answered. Do the research. Don't be irresponsible with your money. Understand it's your hobby. And,
Right.
I got to also, there's another way to justify this and say the loop, right? I think one great way to justify it is get out of that loop. you're losing money.
Yeah.
And if you don't enjoy playing your guitars, what's the point in buying them or playing? That doesn't fathom. But also let's get realistic here. $2,000, dude, you could be spending a lot
A
more
lot more.
money. You have what guilt over a $2,000 Strat. I'm sorry, but I mean, $2,000 these days is practically budget. I mean, it's
Yeah.
Mexican Strats are going for 2 grand. I mean, it's not a joke. So you're actually being pretty responsible as it is. Now, if you were thinking about buying a Tyler at 8 grand, I'd probably go, do you need the Tyler? Like,
Yeah. Or an
no,
original Klon.
right, or an original for 8 grand. So cut yourself some slack, show yourself some grace. I think Wes's advice was spot on. And yeah, like just be okay with it, but therapy might help.
Yeah,
Let's be honest.
definitely.
I've
Definitely.
been there. So, all right, next question. Uh, okay.
Number three.
This is the third question. We have a lot of questions to get through.
We
Wes,
do.
what say you here?
Uh,
Do strings really make a difference? Uh, he continues.
Okay. I'll wait for the rest.
Mhm. Is there a difference between good quality string brands such as Diodario, GHS, Super Slinky, Stringjoy, etc.? Interesting that he. Okay. I've tried them all and stick with Diodario because I can get a 10-pack the cheapest. But I have no problem using the other brands, and I wouldn't call myself loyal to any brand in particular. I just can't tell the difference between these brands. I had a guitar with 3 different brands on 3 different guitars, and they all felt the same. Okay. So what say you? He says. Do strings make a difference? Wes?
Uh well, I guess if you listen to some of the YouTube wizards, and I won't mention any names because I don't want them to blacklist us and eliminate our listens. Um, but if you listen to some of those folks out there on the YouTube, then we should all be playing sevens or eights or something, because anything more and you're wasting effort. Um,
I have
so
heard that.
let me tell you my story, and at the end we'll know where my position on this. I've been playing Ernie Ball's tens. That's the green pack
Mm-hmm.
since the early 1990s, maybe 91 or 92. I use them on almost all of my guitars. I've tried every brand you can think of, mass market, small market, this, that. I even tried the Optima Gold strings,
Ooh.
right? And I didn't find any of them to be any better than the Ernie Ball 10s. As a matter of fact, I got burned on an expensive batch of boutique strings because they were improperly wound, and every single one of the high E strings, the ball end popped off. As soon as you put any tension on it, the ball end popped off. So I had
Fantastic.
all these expensive sets of 5 strings that I had to put an Ernie Ball 10 in with to complete the set,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that was the end of it. They
Mm-hmm.
didn't sound better than Ernie Balls. They didn't feel better than my Ernie Balls. They didn't last longer than my Ernie Balls. Can I say balls one more time?
Balls.
So to me, yeah, it makes a difference, but
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't make enough of a difference for me to go away from my Ernie Balls. Now, having said that, I use Diodario NYXLs on my Jazz Masters.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because the way that the strings go across the screws on the bridge, there's something about that angle and that friction that breaks the Ernie Ball strings. And the Diodario NYXLs have a different, maybe it's wrapped the opposite direction, or whatever it is at the bottom by the ball end. It's a little stronger against that abrasion,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I break the XLs on the Jazz Masters far less often than I break the Ernie Balls. That's why I use them. They don't sound any different. They don't feel any different,
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm going for is consistency over time.
Okay.
I know when I buy a pack of Ernie Ball 10s, and I put it on a guitar, I don't have to change the intonation on my guitar. I
Hmm.
don't have to change the action. The strings are going to be perfect every time. And on the rare occasion that they're not, I've sent emails to Ernie Ball and they've sent me replacement packs.
Mm.
It's happened twice.
Wow.
Now I'll say Diodario did the same thing for me.
Yeah.
So, good customer service. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, we can convince ourselves that a lot of things make a difference. And if you're
Yeah.
spending $25 on a set of 6 guitar strings, then you're going to convince yourself those are the best strings in the world.
Yeah. There
But you
is a
can,
little bit of that. There's a little bit of
yeah,
that confirmation bias, but I mean, so most of the time I will use those Diodario XLs, the ones that you like, and they're not cheap. They're not the most expensive string, but they're not cheap.
yeah, they're not bad at
And
all.
if I can't get them in the gauge I want, I will resort to Ernie Ball. Um, but the question he asked is, do strings make a difference? I mean, that's a pretty broad question. Do they make a difference in tone? Yes.
They can't, yeah, absolutely. If they,
I definitely can hear the difference between a stainless steel, nickel.
yep,
Absolutely.
yep,
Now,
different alloys have different sonic
yep,
characteristics.
yep. Now, can you hear a difference between brands? You know, I don't know because I never tried it, but I do know in other areas they make a difference. Like I know Diodario's 99% of the time will intonate really well on my guitars.
Yeah,
I also like how they feel. And so, and also like nickel strings. I don't like steel strings. But
I'm right there with you, man.
yeah, so I have good luck with Diodarios. I don't break strings. They intonate pretty quickly. And as long as I know I'm not getting counterfeits, and there are plenty of counterfeits on eBay, you got to be
Yes, there are.
super. I'm not eBay, Amazon. I do not anymore buy strings on Amazon. No more. I'll pay more, but I will get them from Sweetwater because they get them directly from Diodario. I do not buy strings on Amazon because I have gotten counterfeit strings. They
Yeah,
look identical to what you're. So how did we find this out? So um, I had a problem with a pack of Diodarios. Actually, I bought a combo pack and I had problems with all three sets. And so I, talked to Diodario. And they said, "Where'd you get them? Amazon. You probably got counterfeit strings. We're aware of the problem. We're working with Amazon. It's a
yeah,
thing." I never knew this. Who knew? So that was a while back. So, I mean, I dig the fact that the guys at Diodario really care about, it's crazy how much they care about the string making process. They are obsessive over it.
yeah,
And I kind of respect that. Like, even though Diodario is a huge company, when you talk to them, they're still super nerdy over strings, and like
yeah,
I feel like I'm talking to a boutique company. So I dig that. I can hear a difference. I can feel a difference. It certainly is, from an intonation perspective, I can definitely tell. So for me, great. You're saying though, sir, the questioner, you tried three different brands on three different guitars. Not a good test.
no,
Okay.
because yeah, different wood, different pickups, different scale length, different
Who knows?
bridges.
Who knows exactly? And the other thing I'd say is when you say you couldn't tell the difference, you couldn't tell the difference between them. I mean, how much of a control was it? I
Yeah,
mean, I'm just saying, like, it's really hard to run a test like that in real world scenario. So
yeah,
maybe you couldn't tell a difference. And hey, if you can't tell a difference, keep buying the cheapest strings you can get.
yeah,
I personally would avoid that because I've had problems with counterfeits. And so I'm not looking for cheap. I'm looking for consistent, and I will call
yeah,
Sweetwater. I did try String Joys. I didn't like them. A lot of people love them. So in a way, I know strings make a difference. I tried a brand that everyone loves, and I was like, I do not like these.
yeah,
So I could tell a difference as soon as I put them on. And to me, it just there was something about that string that just didn't work for me. I
yeah,
don't know what it was. I could have got a bad batch. I will be honest. I could have got a
yeah.
bad pack, but I
It's
got them from
possible.
Stringjoy. So, they weren't counterfeit. But anyway, long
Yeah,
story short, strings make a difference. And I
yeah.
don't know.
I
But
want to
what are
add a
you
couple
into?
things before we move on.
Yeah.
Um, First is I do use string joys. I use them on my weird guitars. So
Mm-hmm.
my Rick 12 is strung up with string joys. My bass 6 is strung up with string joys, and my baritone is strung up with string joys because I wanted specific gauges on those guitars. And I can't call Ernie Ball and go, "Hey, it's Wes. Can you guys make me a set of blah blah blah?"
No, you don't
And
do that? I
yeah,
do that sometimes.
well, I mean, they might, but they'll be like, "Yeah, you got to buy 5,000 packs."
Seriously.
Where I can get 2 or 3 from Stringjoy, and that's going to last me a couple of years on those particular guitars. Um, and I would also tell this guy, check out Ernie Balls, because when you buy a 10 pack of Ernie Balls, you actually get 12.
Ooh, I like
Yeah,
that.
they put 4 3 packs in the box in what they call a case.
I like that.
So yeah, that's pretty slick.
All right.
And I lost the other thing I was going to say.
Well, hold that
It
thought because I'm going to
was
go change the laundry over, and then maybe you'll remember.
maybe I'll think of it.
All right.
And for you guys listening or watching, this won't take 10 minutes. It'll be over in a second because he's going to edit this part out. I talked the whole time you were gone, so there's no dead spot for you to look for.
You son of a bitch.
So you'll either decide to find it and cut it out, or you'll just leave it in.
Leave it in and let everyone hear you ramble. You son of a bitch. All right.
Next question, number 4.
Number 4. All right. This one's definitely for you. I didn't have I mean, this is, what it is. I didn't have a great answer to this. If I were a guitar builder, I would build this kind of guitar. I ask you, if you were a guitar builder, what would you build? He goes on to say, what's lacking in the marketplace that you would like to see?
When I first read this question, I kind of misunderstood or misinterpreted it. I looked at it as, what kind of guitar would I want to buy? If I were a guitar builder,
That's
I
how
would
that's how I interpreted it.
yeah, if I was a guitar builder, I would buy guitars that gave me the most profit possible. I would buy the cheapest guitars to build that I could sell at the highest price. That's what I would do. There is nothing lacking in the marketplace. Everything you can think of is out there. Somebody is making it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's actually true. I couldn't think of anything special, but if I answer the question how I originally interpreted it, I'm pretty sure I have a guitar in the house right now that I absolutely adore. It's not the Tyler. I love that guitar. I
I
would change
do.
nothing about the Tyler. But I have a custom shop Strat. It is black, but it's black over vintage white,
Which I think is the coolest thing that they have ever done.
and that vintage white is over it's a roasted roasted alder body
Okay.
and a roasted maple neck. And there's nothing about this guitar I don't like, except
Having to use the word roasted. That's like using the word moist. It's just so.
where was I? I would do 3 things to this guitar to make it 100% perfect. It's
Okay.
like 99.9. Noiseless single coil pickups. For the love of God, it's 2024. How are we still dealing with single coil pickups that are
Boomers.
noiseless?
That's why boomers.
I don't listen. I do agree that the single coil pickups, the custom shop Strat pickups, are probably my favorite single coil pickups of all time. However, they are so true to vintage. They have noise, and I just feel like we got to get past this, folks. Can we just?
Are yours potted? Do they at least not squeal?
Yes, I'm
Okay.
not. I'm not okay right now. I'm feeling a little triggered about this.
That's all right.
All right, that's first thing. Noiseless single coil. Second thing, stainless steel frets. Come on, man. Stainless steel frets. Who wants to bother with fret levels every couple years?
I don't like the way the stainless steel frets feel.
They feel slick and slippery, and I love it. And the
I
last thing I would
I
change,
believe you.
the last thing I would change is the tremolo. I don't hate the Fender 2-point. It's not the best 2-point. I like the Godo 510. I think that feels a little better. I don't
Yeah.
know why. It just does. So I would do that. I'm not going to do it on this guitar, but I would do it if I was making my own guitar. I would make that guitar, but I would do those three things to it. Wes, what are you at? Nothing. There's no What would you build if you were building yourself
If I was
this kind of
building
guitar?
myself the perfect guitar,
Yeah.
it would be a Strat with a lightweight ash body, not swamp, not
Mm.
sunken ash, but like baseball bat ash. Uh, maple neck, maple fingerboard, 10-inch radius, big old fat CBS headstock because I
Mm-hmm.
love that thing.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, locking tuners. I'd put a man-made bridge on it
Mm.
because I love those man-made bridges. I have one on one of my Strats and it's fantastic. And the only thing kind of weird about it would be the way I would wire it up. I'd wire it up like my heavy metal Strat, which is it looks like a hum single single.
Right.
But it's got a 3-way switch in it instead of a 5-way switch. And the 2 single coils are on a blender pot that's both in the middle and one or the other at either end. It's got a little detente. So if you go to 10, you've got one pickup. If you go to 0, you've got the other pickup.
Mm.
And if you stop on 5, you've got both pickups full on. It's not like an audio taper pot.
Right.
Right. It's kind of an on-off pot. So I put that in place of the tone 1. And I put the bridge pickup on a tone pot in the space of tone 2, standard volume with a treble bleeder. And then I hook the humbucker and the blend pot up to the switch, the 3-way switch. So I can have any combination of 2 pickups or 3 pickups or 1. The only thing I can't have is nothing. I can get all the sounds.
I like that. That is
Yeah.
very wild. How did you come up with this?
I dreamed it. I literally had a dream, and in that dream, I came up with the idea to put a blender pot on the neck and middle pickups. That's it. I dreamed it.
Okay. All right. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, moving on. Question number 5. Oh, this one got me. I might need a drink after this one.
Oh yeah.
Question number 5. Here's the question. How many parts of a guitar can be replaced and still be considered the original guitar?
Do you want to answer it there, or do you want to read the rest?
Yeah, I'm going to answer it. Also, this is the Ship of Theseus. Am I saying that right?
Theseus, yeah.
The Ship of Theseus thought experiment. If you're not familiar with this thought experiment, it's basically whether an object is the same object after having had all of its original components replaced. So just think about that for a minute. And actually, I have a similar thought experiment, which I will like to share with you. Okay.
Yeah.
Time and time again, this person is triggered. There's posts online from people with some variation of the following. My Squire / Epiphone / Harley Benton is awesome for the price. I bought one 6 years ago, and since then I've replaced the pickups, the electronics, the tuners, the bridge. It's been refretted. I installed a bone nut and refinished the back and the neck with True Oil. Now it smokes. I couldn't be happier. Voice for effect. Question.
That was pretty awesome.
Yeah. 1. Why? So he's moving. The original question wasn't enough. He's got more questions. Okay. Why makes it?
Hold on a second. Let's answer the main question first, and then answer the sub questions.
How many parts of a guitar can be replaced and still be considered the original guitar? None. By definition.
You change one thing and it's not the original guitar anymore.
Yep. I don't care if it's a switch tip. As soon as you replace it with a non-original part, that guitar is no longer original. And if you don't believe me, ask a vintage guitar collector.
Yeah. Now, yeah, whether it affects value or not,
that's not what he asked, right?
That's not what he asked. But
She
yeah,
or
you
they.
replace one part, it is no longer the original guitar.
No
Period. End of
longer.
story. Next
Right.
question.
Now, he is apparently triggered that people are buying cheap guitars and then making modifications to them. So their next question is, why make so many modifications if the guitar was so great in the first place? And my answer is, how dare you,
How
sir?
dare you? Yes.
How
What
dare?
what does he what do you care what I do on my guitar?
I think this jabroni was the one that was bullying Bruce last week
You could be right.
about, why are you changing the pickups if your guitar? Zoom thought that was great.
Zoom thought that was great.
Um, why do you care? Who?
Yeah.
How dare? Why make so many modifications? Because we can.
Yeah, and even a great guitar can be tweaked to make it perfect for the owner player.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Second question, which this was a weird one. This, I think, goes more into the thought experiment.
Yeah,
Does
yeah.
removing the logo from the headstock of an Epiphone make it stop being an Epiphone? If not, what does? So I will answer this question with another question.
Okay. What's your other question?
What made it an Epiphone in the first place?
Yeah, I think the headstock logo only identifies it as an Epiphone.
Mm-hmm.
What makes it an Epiphone is the people who paid for its manufacture.
Thank you.
The Epiphone company paid to get it made. That makes it an Epiphone.
So I say, if you modify an Epiphone, it's still an Epiphone, but not an original Epiphone,
There you go.
right? Um, so the ship of Theseus, okay, let's say we buy an Epiphone and we replace the pickups. Is it still an Epiphone?
No.
I say yes. I just replaced the pickups. It's not the original guitar, but it's still an Epiphone with replaced pickups.
Good point. I concede.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now something happens to the neck and you replace the neck. You actually have the neck replaced at Epiphone.
If Epiphone does it, it's still an Epiphone.
If you replace it at Guitar Center with some other neck,
then I don't think it counts. As soon as you start changing the wood, I think you start getting away from whatever brand it started out as.
so the wood, because you said whoever paid for its manufacture, and didn't Epiphone pay for the manufacture of the body?
Yeah, yeah. So it's part Epiphone.
It's semiphone.
It's semiphone, right? But people can be part this and part that.
Yeah,
So
so
why not a guitar? You put an MJT body on a Fender neck. It's not a Fender guitar, but it's a Fender and MJT guitar.
if you had okay, the Jazzmaster behind you, because it's so easy to replace the neck on a Fender.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a Fender Jazzmaster. The neck, you decide you don't like the neck anymore and you replace it with an almost identical neck, but different shape and different this and that. And it looks identical, but you got it from Warmoth. Is that
Yeah.
still a Fender Jazzmaster? Or is it a Jazzmaster?
Yeah. Yeah. It's at that point, I think the appropriate term for what the guitar is a Jazzmaster shaped parts caster.
It's a modified Jazzmaster.
Yeah, it still looks like a Jazzmaster,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not a Fender Jazzmaster anymore because it does not have a Fender neck and a Fender body.
Right. And putting a Fender logo on it and selling it as a Fender would be fraud.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I have a parts caster that I made with all Fender parts.
It's not a Fender just because all the parts came from Fender, right?
Yeah, all the parts
Right.
came from Fender, but I would not sell it as a Fender Stratocaster.
No.
I would sell it as a parts caster made with all genuine Fender parts.
Because you have ethics. But
well, then I don't want that karma. I don't want that coming back on me.
So I think that sort of answers the question. Anyway, He finishes the question with, "This isn't being asked with any malicious intent." Okay, sure.
Nobody asks a question like that on the gear page without wanting to stir up the shit a little bit.
Right.
Come
Even
on.
anyway, I just thought I should throw that in there. All right, question 6.
Six.
This is a shame. Um, what is the ideal rock slash pop cover band guitar? Um,
Okay, let's hear the rest of the question.
okay.
I need some context for this.
Okay, my situation. Playing in a pop rock cover band, female fronted. Why does that matter?
Eh,
All right.
I guess
Covering.
it's just context.
If he said male fronted, would it change the answer?
No, it wouldn't.
Right, there you go.
I guess he's just trying to tell us that he's cool enough to be in a band with a female singer.
There you go. We have a female fronted band.
Yeah.
We get to stare at nice girl butt all night.
All right, keep going.
Covering 80s to recent stuff.
All right.
The fact that he said 80s to recent breaks my boomer heart. He plays mostly rhythm, but some lead duties. I've been using a Variax JT559 mostly. Sorry to hear that, but occasionally a Les Paul Standard. I'm really sorry to hear that, and have been breaking A and D strings on both guitars far too often at the bridge. Yeah, well, like I said, sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
I also have an ES339, but it has tuning instability.
What? A Gibson with tuning instability? Say it's not so.
Dude, you've already answered your question. Do I even have to answer your question? It has tuning instability and needs fretwork. Finally, I'm loath to play in many bars with a $2,000 plus guitar. Okay, well, more
All
power
right.
to you.
I think that's valid.
Hence, so it's not just ideal, but it has to be cheap. Hence, thinking about replacing my main guitar. I play through a Helix into a deluxe reverb. Oh, okay. What's your suggestion for the perfect 80s, 90s pop rock cover band guitar in the range of 500 what to 1500? Dude, you can't get anything playable for 500. Period. Nope. 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 I'm gonna die on this hill. I've always inflation. I've always
Schecter.
been I've always been a $500 Schecter.
He says 5 to 15.
All right, so I'm saying 500 is just, it's just,
Yeah,
no.
that's a little low.
Come
I
on,
mean,
buddy. A
that's
Hello Kitty
like,
guitar, you could sell them that.
yeah, I mean, but you could be looking at like a rough looking used made in Mexico Strat.
I love this absolute ballsy sentence.
Yes, let's hear it.
After cost range 500 to 1500. I've always been a Gibson guy. Yes, we can see that breaking A and D strings and tuning instability.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, I've always been a Gibson guy. Yes, despite how shitty they are. Right. Keep sticking with them. Keep showing loyalty. Please do. Yeah, get another Gibson. It's going to be great. This one will be great. This one. I've always been a Gibson guy, and the other guitar player has a Strat copy, Schecter. Is he having tuning instability problems? Is he breaking A and D strings? So I'm probably not a keen on a Strat. Oh. Well, what a shame, because guess what the answer is, Jabroni? The answer is a Strat. It is the perfect guitar for what you want to do. It is the most versatile and definitely the best for all of the things you mentioned. And you know what you will not have?
Tuning problems.
And broken A and D strings.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's okay, you know.
Triggered.
Yeah.
I'm a Gibson guy. Also, I'm breaking strings and my guitars don't stay in tune.
Well, but I would say that if he's breaking the A and D strings
on both
guitars, it's him that's the problem and not the guitars. So what is
he doing?
Yeah, he's either abusing his guitars and causing maybe he put strings that are too big for the nut, or the way he plays, he grinds those strings against the bridge saddles, and now there's burrs.
You might be onto something there, buddy, because if it's the same strings on both guitars,
Yeah,
then
that's him, not the guitars.
and there's a lot of things a person can do. Couldn't he also possibly be like just maybe his sweat is just really breaking down his strings
Yeah,
fast?
that's possible. Some
Huh.
people's sweat will react negatively with metal.
And isn't like the A and D along with the E where you usually palm mute? Like, couldn't he
Yeah,
just have like really bad sweat and his sweat's just eroding his strings? All right,
yeah,
that's
that's
disgusting.
sure that's possible.
All right,
Gross,
so
yeah.
my answer is I would actually find a used Strat or a Strat copy like your buddy that with the Schecter who's apparently on the ball. Because I do think they're the most versatile guitar for what you're looking to do and just get over the whole I'm a Gibson guy nonsense. Um, and if you're not a Strat guy, get over it. But also, there's a lot of Strat like guitars,
Oh,
right?
I got one better for you, man.
Ibanez, ESP, well,
I've
LTD. Go
I've
ahead,
solved
man.
this guy's problem.
Bring it.
He needs a Gibson U2.
What is that?
That's Gibson Super Strat. They made a Super Strat called the U2
Oh,
for a few years.
well, he is a Gibson guy.
It's a hum single single. It's got a Floyd Rose or a Floyd Rose license, I think. It might even be a Kaler. If he's into funky guitars, he could get a Gibson M3. That's MIII, by
Mm.
the way, which was a pointy Super Strat with a
Mm.
reverse hockey stick head, sharp hockey stick head stock,
Perfect for the 80s stuff.
perfect for the 80s stuff. And also, you could, I think they were either hum single single or hum single hum. But here's the thing, the place where I am. If he's playing through a Helix, just play a guitar that he likes the feel of, that doesn't break strings, and make the Helix make it sound like whatever he wants.
I mean,
Right? Isn't a Helix a modeler?
yes, and into a deluxe reverb. I mean, I hate to say this, dude, but I don't. It almost doesn't matter what you're playing.
Yeah. I mean, he can make that rig sound like anything he wants to.
And no one will know the difference. It doesn't matter what guitar you're playing. You're saying
Yes.
I need the perfect guitar for. Here was my
No.
original answer. He said, "What is the ideal rock pop cover band guitar?" You know what my first answer was? The one you enjoy playing.
Yeah,
Next.
that's true. With that
That's
with that
it.
rig, yeah.
That's it.
Because
That's the answer.
what he really needs to do is spend some time with his Helix programming his presets.
I think he also needs to spend some time with his guitars and find out why they're breaking A and D strings.
Yeah,
Buying
yeah.
another guitar isn't the answer.
That's gonna bother me. That's gonna bother me. I can't talk about this guy anymore.
All right. I mean, you're like, I'm breaking A and D strings. I need to buy another guitar. What? I don't you need to address the problem here? And also,
Yeah.
I have an ES339 with tuning stability and needs fretwork. Why do you still why? And by the way, that is not an ideal rock pop guitar, but you could make it work. I'll bet you Pat Metheny could. Although although I don't think Pat Metheny's great for pop or rock. I don't think that
No,
is.
no,
Okay.
no.
Question 7. Would you return this guitar?
Now, we obviously can't show people the pictures,
No.
but the guy showed a bunch of pictures of a guitar that had a bunch of scratches on it. So tell us the rest of the thread.
Okay. Would you return this guitar? My wife bought me a Yamaha CX40 for Christmas. Now, CX40 is a very beginner classical acoustic electric. It's roughly a $200 guitar.
Yeah.
Okay.
New.
New. Let me just start there. It was lovely guitar, but I had to return it as there was a huge dent in the fretboard and the piezo was broken. Got a piezo guitar for less than like around $200.
It probably wasn't piezo, but it had a pickup in it.
Oh,
Maybe an under saddle pickup of some sort.
okay. It was a huge dent in the fretboard, so he had to return it. I got the replacement yesterday and found the following issues. There are hundreds of tiny scratches on the back as if it's been cleaned with the wrong thing. like the wrong polishing cloth or compound.
Like
There is
Scotch Brite.
right. There is a thing. No, I'm sorry. There is a ding on the top edge of the fretboard near the sound hole that looks like paint or adhesive wasn't cleaned properly, leaving an unsightly mark. Am I being a bit prissy over this? He says. So there's two questions. Would you return this guitar? And am I being a bit prissy?
Let's take the second one first. Is he being prissy?
No.
I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think being critical about the condition of a guitar that you just bought,
That's brand new.
ostensibly brand new, is being prissy.
However,
would
for that,
you return the guitar?
I
Now
wouldn't have bought it
did,
in the first place.
yeah,
I know your
exactly.
wife bought it for you and it was a gift, and she probably doesn't know that $200 is it's not a price range where you're going to get a quality instrument, and she may not know that. Or it's what she could afford, or for a variety of reasons. It was the thought that matters, right?
Yeah,
We're just after Christmas, and this is when it's the return season. But she bought it for you. And if I was in this position and my wife bought me a $200 guitar, um, I would accept it, say thank you, and probably never play it, which is a shame.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, I
So,
mean, let's be technical about this. He already doesn't have the guitar his wife actually gave him.
yeah, seriously,
He returned that one and he got
return
a
that
different one.
but for the same one.
So now it's just a gift in spirit.
Right. So, I mean, no, I would give it back and say, this isn't working.
Yeah.
I would talk with your wife and just say, look, at this price range, I may not be able to get another one that's any good. This is what happens at this price range. It's unfortunate. It's the thought that matters. I'd rather you have the money back and we could do something nice with that money
Yeah.
and make it worth our while. Like go out
Yeah.
and have a nice weekend or a nice dinner, or she can buy you something else that costs the same thing. But no, I don't think you're being prissy. And yes, I would absolutely return a guitar with flaws in it, brand new,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. I can't even argue with you there,
Come on.
except I bought a guitar that arrived with a bunch of problems and I didn't send it back.
No, you didn't.
No, I didn't. I complained. I griped at the guy that sold it to me.
That's an interesting story, though, because I think obviously if I were in your shoes, it would have gone right back. You chose a very different route.
Yeah. And what we're talking about is my Eastwood Sidejack baritone.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it came and it had a bunch of paint flaws on it. The tremolo cavity was misrouted. It was mispositioned. So somebody had to, after it was painted, they probably figured this out during assembly.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody had to take a hand router to it.
Mm-hmm.
The fretwork was terrible, just terrible.
Just across the board, it was a disappointment.
Yeah, the whole thing was a disappointment. Unfortunately, I was all in at that point because I needed it for a recording project.
Yeah. Yep.
And you've heard the song. You got to admit, it was worth it. I mean, go on, that song needed baritone.
It sounded great.
So what I did was I took it to my tech and I said, hey, put a bone nut on this that's cut properly for these strings. I gave him the strings that I wanted on it so he could cut them to the right width. And he cleaned up all the fret ends. He did a level crown and polish. And I got back a very different playing guitar than I gave him.
Yeah.
But it still had paint flaws in it.
Yeah.
And I complained to the retailer and he issued me a partial refund.
So I think, what you could do, sir, ma'am, whoever it is that's asking this question, if you really want this guitar and you just want a decent one, I would wait until you can get one that is in like semi-decent shape at least. But I would be sending a letter to the store, Yamaha. Like, seriously, they need to know. I'm sorry. I get that it's only $200 and that's not a lot of money for guitars these days. But if something leaves the factory in the shape that you're seeing it, I'm sorry, that's it's worth discussing.
Yeah.
I would make
Yeah.
a big deal about that. All right, question 8.
Eight, eight, eight,
Eight,
eight.
eight. Why are mini pots considered to be inferior to standard sized ones? Are they? Oh,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. They
yeah.
are considered to be inferior to
Okay.
full-size pots.
A pot is a pot is a pot. Given the wiper and resistor element are of decent quality, why does it matter? Okay, so there's 2 questions.
Yeah, there's two
First
questions.
question, why are mini pots considered to be inferior? So, Wes,
Oh, I know this because traditionally mini pots come in cheap imported guitars,
mhm,
and that means kind
guilty
of
by
crappy.
association. Yeah.
And decades of seeing crappy imports with mini pots means that when I see mini pots, I assume it's a crappy pot, not because it's a mini pot, but because it's been poorly made, because
Yep.
it's in a cheap import.
Guilty by association.
Yeah, guilt by association. And I know for a fact CTS makes mini pots,
Mhm.
but Squire doesn't put mini CTS mini pots in their guitars.
No, they don't.
They don't do it.
Yeah. So the question, if a pot is a pot, why does it matter? Because my, a pot is not a pot.
Yeah, just
It-
kind of the virtue of him asking the question means he recognizes that a pot is not a pot,
right.
that there's manufacturing quality differences.
Absolutely. So yeah, no, a pot is not a pot. If you said given the wiper and resistor element are of decent quality, well then yeah, I would say yes. All decent quality pots are going to probably be decent quality. But that's the caveat is not all pots are created equal. And honestly, it's the mini pot is in and of itself not the problem. As Wes said, it's been guilt by association, and I would bet a CTS makes a decent mini pot. So he was saying, why are mini pots considered to be inferior? I actually never knew that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I never even come across them for all that much. I listen, you and I could probably look at a pot these days and go, this isn't good.
Yeah.
Like we don't even have to know where it came from. But if I saw a mini pot in a cheap guitar, yes, I would assume it was crap. But if I saw a regular pot in a cheap guitar, I would probably also think it was crap. Like to me,
Yeah.
it's not the size that made me think that, but like you said,
Yeah.
it's yeah,
I'm certainly biased towards CTS and alpha pots.
yeah.
If I am having a problem with a guitar and I figure that the problem is with the electronics, I and the pots aren't CTS or alpha, I assume the problem is the parts and I
Hmm.
replace the pots.
Yep. Yeah. All
Yeah,
right.
and it in my lifetime, more often than not, that has been the solution.
So question 9.
Nine.
Now, this is a long question.
Oh, good.
I'm gonna get to the gist of it though.
All right.
How
I
do
was
you
starting to worry that we wouldn't go 2 hours, so
yeah.
we need a long question.
Okay. So generally, how do you decide on the pickups that you buy? Um,
How much time you got?
seriously. So he's building. How did you pick your pickups? I'm plotting out a Strat parts caster. Ooh, hey Wes, you might know a thing or two about a thing or two.
I might.
There's no uniform way to listen to multiple different kinds of pickups. Arguably. Um, putting aside, I'm sorry, his question confused me.
Yeah,
He says
he rambles a little.
he says there's no uniform way to listen to multiple different kinds of pickups. I
That's not
mean,
true.
yeah, I don't think it is either. So he's saying, how do you pick? And he said, how did you decide? Option 1, watch videos. Option 2, read reviews or forums. Option 3, trial and error. Ding, 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 ding. Option 4, hearing friends or colleagues and asking them. Not so much. Depends on who your friends are.
Yeah, if you're
Um,
asking me,
I trust you.
yeah,
I
exactly.
trust very few. Question 5, looking up what my Guitar Hero might have used. Absolutely not anymore. Not these days, my friend.
uh,
So Wes, I want to know, I can tell you what I want to know how you today
today.
What is your process today for picking pickups?
Pretty much 1 through 4. I will watch videos, I will read reviews, I will talk to people and ask them, and then it comes down to trial and error. Because even if I get glowing recommendations from YouTube,
Mhm,
guitarworld.com, and
mhm.
I could still put a pickup in my guitar and not like it.
Bingo. Absolutely. Trial and error.
Yeah.
Um,
And
we
the
did
the
we did
only
an
reason,
episode real quick. I have to say, we did an episode on whether you can trust YouTube videos.
right. Yeah, that
We
was
didn't,
one of the first episodes, wasn't
yeah,
it?
we didn't say not to watch them, but we did say watch them with a healthy dose of skepticism
Yeah, yeah.
and don't make it the only way, you know?
Right.
Yeah. So you said 1 through 4.
Yeah, because I don't really care what my Guitar Hero used, because they sound the way they sound because of,
They're them.
yeah, they're them, the way they play. Like, if I pick up, um, see the Brian May guitar?
Is that what that is?
Yeah, that's what
I
that
didn't know you
is.
like Brian May.
Yeah, when I play that, I don't sound like Brian May. I sound like me playing a Brian May guitar.
Dude, I have to be honest with you. I would feel so betrayed if I bought that guitar and did not immediately sound like Brian May. I would feel so betrayed. Like that just there's nothing like that guitar on them. It looks so unique and the
It
pickups
does.
and wiring are so unique. I would convince myself with this guitar, I will finally achieve that magical tone that you've heard on dozens of records. I would
Yeah.
feel so betrayed.
When I first got that guitar, my number one amp was a PV Classic 50 212 combo.
Mm.
So I plugged it into the PV Classic 50 212 combo
Mhm.
and played Tie Your Mother Down. Very recognizable riff.
Yep.
Didn't sound a bit like Brian May.
No, and
And
that's
I know what pickups which combination of pickups he used and whether they're in phase or out of phase. And I selected that, and I did not sound like him. Not one bit.
Ted Nugent,
I played
who
the whole song, never
depending
sounded like
on
Brian May.
depending on who you are in this world, Ted Nugent may or may not trigger you. He's not my favorite human being in the world, but
He's a hell of a guitar player, though.
he did tell a story um, many moons ago, which I will never forget, and that is he toured with Van Halen, had the immense honor of for the first time in his life. The thing about he was standing on stage with a living legend and his guitars and his gear.
Yeah.
And he said, may I please play that guitar and through your rig?" And Eddie, the whole deal. Absolutely, Ted. And Ted plays the guitar, and he was so disappointed to find out that he sounded just like
He always
Ted
sounds.
Nugent.
Yep.
And this and I remember hearing or reading that story in a magazine, and it stuck with me all these years because it drove home a very significant point. You sound like you, period. And I agree with you that watching videos is a great idea. Reading reviews and checking out forums and looking for recommendations, all that stuff. But at the end of the day, trial and error is going to be your friend. You're absolutely going to have to try a bunch of different things. Some of them are going to work, some are not,
Yeah.
and you're just going to have to figure out at the end of the day what you really like, and it's okay. Like
Yeah.
just expect that no matter what you do, you may get it and hate it. Just expect it. Just
Yeah.
be ready.
It's happened to me more times than I care to remember.
But what you can do, my friend, I think we can help him narrow it down. Like, what are you going for?
Yeah, you got to know you're not going to buy a set of EMGs, whatever the Zach Wild set is, 85, 81, to play shoegaze.
Mhm. What are you going for?
Yeah.
You know, there is a distinct, no matter who makes the pickup, there's a distinct difference between a humbucker, a P90, a single coil. Then those are just three of the main ones. There's
Yeah.
a lot of other different kinds of
Yeah,
pickups.
then you got
Mini
mini
hums,
hums, you got
which are some of my favorites.
Jazzmaster pickups, you
Hmm.
got Filtertrons,
Yep.
you got there's so many pickups out there.
So first thing is, what are you going for style wise? And think about, don't think as much about output. Think about magnets,
Yeah.
because magnets make a huge difference. And these days they're trying all sorts of new things with magnets. So it used to be, well, it's either Alnico or ceramic. And yes, those are still very popular, but there's Alnico 5, there's Alnico 2, there's Alnico 8. There's a lot of different types of magnets. So narrow it down for yourself. Think about what you're trying to accomplish. You know, output is not as important as you think it is. It's mostly the magnets. And I think if you narrow it down, and you know what? When I say narrow it down, I also mean limit yourself on purpose. So I would say right off the bat, I would look at 2 or 3 main brands. Like, find 2 or 3 brands that you can trust. So let's say it's Fralin, let's say it's Wolf Tone, let's say it's Lawler, let's say it's Duncan. I don't know. You pick and just stick with those brands and don't get sidetracked,
Yeah.
and find similar pickups in those brands and maybe try a few. They're not hard to put in,
No.
and you can either sell what you don't like or return. Sometimes they'll let you return. So just like expect some experimentation, which is
Yeah.
kind of fun.
It
Unless you
might
have a hollow body, in which case just buy one set of pickups, pay someone to put them in, and go home
and yeah, and just
successful.
yeah, my suggestion if you got a hollow body is just like whatever's in it. Yeah, I mean, I've put dozens of pickups in dozens of guitars over the past couple 3 decades, and a lot of them worked and a lot of them didn't. And at this point, I just kind of know what sounds good to me in what kind of guitar. You know, I'm gonna put, like, I knew when I got my heavy metal Strat, I knew that putting DiMarzios in it was the right choice
Mhm.
because it's basswood, it's super Strat, it's, fully floating bridge. DiMarzios excel at that,
Mhm.
you know. But if I was putting them in a Les Paul, trick question, I wouldn't be putting pickups in a Les Paul because I wouldn't have one. No, but when I bought a McCarty, which is basically a double cut Les Paul, right, by PRS, and it had Fralins in it. There are these pickups called P92s. I
Hmm.
did not care for the way they sounded in that guitar, but I knew if I got a Fralin PAF, that would sound great in that guitar. And that's exactly what I did. I got a Fralin PAF and I put it in the bridge. And then I went out on a limb and I tried something. I got a pickup that Lindy calls the big single, and it's a humbucker sized noiseless single coil
Mhm.
with no visible pole pieces. So it just looks like the cover just looks smooth and pretty, because I do like a hum single setup. And as it turned out, luck would have it, I love the way that pickup sounds in that guitar.
Mhm.
But I don't know if it would sound good if I put it in a Strat,
Mm.
because completely different kind of wood, different position between the
Right.
bridge and the
Yep.
neck, and the, you know, it's just I don't know if that pickup would sound good.
So there you go. Speaking of tone, my friend, we're up to question 10.
We are.
Yeah.
Let's talk more tone. Yeah, but I
Okay.
mean, on the pickup thing, it really just comes down to trying stuff until you got to fake it till you make it. Like, I
Yep.
know that I don't like Seymour Duncan single coil pickups because I used enough of them to know I don't like Seymour Duncan single coil pickups.
Yeah, you had to date a few Ugmos before you found the
Yeah.
beauties.
And it doesn't mean that those pickups suck. Just means that I don't like the way they sound in my guitars.
Bingo. Yeah.
That's all.
Yep.
So tone is so subjective.
It really is. You know, that's why the Brian May guitar, when you play it, you don't sound like Brian May.
That's right.
Speaking of Brian May, well-known guitarist with horrible tone.
I don't like the way you put that sentence together. You go back and you fix that, mister.
All right. So the questioner is asking well-known guitarists with horrible tones. You know, if you put this on the gear page, you might be trolling.
Yeah. Yeah, this is absolutely a troll question. I fell
Right.
for it because I have
So,
strong opinions about this.
all right. So I'll tell you what. You go and then I'll go, and then you go and then I'll go, and then you go and I'll go, and we'll just riff for a little bit. All right. So who's your
Okay.
first pick for a famous? He said well-known, but let's just go famous. Who's a well-known or famous guitarist with horrible tone, which we know is subjective.
Yes, we know it's subjective, but and I get a lot of crap for this. Every time it comes up, I say the same thing, and it's Randy Rhoads.
Oh, come on.
His
What?
tone on those first two solo Ozzy albums is wretched.
I don't agree.
Dude, he plugged a Les Paul into a Marshall and he sounds like that.
Okay,
I mean,
first
come
of
on.
all,
Amazing player, 100%
I
amazing
know,
player,
I know.
revolutionary even,
Yeah,
but he sounded terrible.
I don't agree. And look, let's be fair. First of all, he wasn't playing just a Les Paul into a Marshall. It was
No,
a,
he had other guitars too.
but it was a, no, where I was going with that is that the cabinet had like these Altec Lansing speakers. Like it wasn't a traditional Marshall cabinet.
That was a bad choice.
Yeah, and that
Sorry, Randy. R.I.P. Rest in power, King.
I,
But
I don't I don't know. See, you've said this before to me, maybe on the show, maybe not. And I went back and I'm like, maybe I just love Randy so much that I've been blind to it. So I went and listened. And although I can hear why you would think that, I just can't bring myself to say that I agree. But I don't disagree that it's a very unique tone.
Yes, it is.
For a guy who is ostensibly playing a Les Paul through a Marshall head.
Yeah.
But also MXR pedals, which frankly can be a little, if you're not careful.
Yeah.
So I can hear what you're saying, but I'm sorry, I just don't hear when I listen to, especially Diary of a Madman. When I listen to that album, I don't hear bad tone. All right. Anyway, well, if you think you triggered me, I am not a fan of Zakk Wylde's tone, my friend.
Dude. I love Zakk Wylde.
I know you do, and he's also an EMG player.
He is, and I hate EMGs. I hate EMGs.
When I listen to his Ozzy work, I'm not referring to his Black Label Society work, but I found his Ozzy tone to be way over processed, and just it was. I don't know, man. There's just something very.
I can't argue with you on that. It was excessively processed.
Yeah, like it's just no. But
yeah. But I mean, I prefer his tone on No More Tears to No Rest for the Wicked.
Mm-hmm.
But is it awesome? I don't know. It's not.
When I hear No More Tears and I hear him like palm muting power chords, and it just sounds like slushy, just so much processing. It just loses all of the balls and chunk that his tone was meant to have, and it's definitely not the tone that fits the man, the style, the Zakk Wylde. All right, who's next on your list?
I was really racking my brains over this because I wanted to try and come up with some players that might not be the most obvious.
Okay.
And I wanted to spread the love out a little bit. No pun intended. So I saw Hole play at one of the Lollapaloozas. I don't remember what year it was. It was in the 90s. I was still in college.
Oh, wow.
I was in college for a long time. Don't be impressed. Um, and she had just about the worst live tone I think I've ever heard.
Yeah.
It was, her guitar sounded like a buzz saw, but not in a good way.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it was just, it was harsh and borderline offensive tone. Now,
Yeah.
did I enjoy the set? No, because I don't really like their music either. But I think it also sounded terrible that day. But there were thousands of people having a real good time.
Yeah, yeah.
So, you know,
I know. It's all
but
subjective.
yeah, and I was in front of the speakers. I was taking pictures, so I was hearing her stage volume.
Yeah. Oof.
So
All
I
right.
was just hearing her amps and not hearing her through the PA.
Here's one I expect we might agree on. Um, Dimebag Darrell.
Oh, dude, he had terrible tone.
Terrible.
I mean,
Terrible.
it wouldn't be Pantera without it, right? That fizzy,
Mm-hmm.
almost digital,
Mm-hmm.
you know, just
Mm-hmm.
oh, it was so angry.
Mm-hmm.
And but
And people want that tone.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but
Okay.
you instantly know who it is,
Yeah. So, yeah.
right?
Yeah. I mean, again, tone is subjective. I didn't insult his playing or the man as a human being, but that tone did not work for me. All right, who do you have any more
I
just
do.
horrible tone?
I have a few more.
All right, bring me one more.
I'm gonna throw you one because you know I'm big into the hair metal.
Hmm.
I love me some hair metal bands, but a lot of hair metal bands had guitar players had sharp trebly tone, which again, you know,
Yeah.
they're playing humbuckers through Marshalls. Now they're not typically, other than Cinderella, they're not playing Les Pauls, you know, but you know, they're playing super strats through Marshalls, and a lot of them just have bad tone. But I think out of all of them, the worst was probably CC DeVille of Poison.
Uh, yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
good player, but like Randy, no, I'm not comparing CC DeVille to Randy Rhodes. Don't, but good player, bad tone, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they sold millions of albums on his
Yeah.
tone.
Well, on the image.
Well,
You know, it's funny you mentioned the hair metal because I immediately thought about the first couple Dokken records.
not
George
great
Lynch did
tone.
not have great tone.
No,
He
but it got
wasn't there
better.
yet. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
by I don't
under
know.
lock and key for sure.
Things definitely got better. And dude, if you listen to his solo, that first Lynch Mob record, we did a Music That Matters on that. That is maybe one of the
Yeah,
most iconic guitar tunes. But
yeah.
in the beginning, yeesh. All right. I'm not going to give you my last one, Kirk Hammett, because I just don't. Again, tone is very subjective. Metallica, and I don't
Did
think
you?
it's fair to judge guitar play.
Uh,
It's what pedal.
well, here. Oh yeah, I know. I mean, I don't know when I missed it, but it seemed like Kirk just started using a wah pedal for every solo, and it sounds unpleasant to me.
It was. Do you remember what album that started? I want to
I
say it
don't.
actually was possibly the one with Jason Newsted.
And Justice
That
for
and
All,
Justice for All. I think
probably one of the
that's
worst sounding heavy metal albums ever.
uh,
It was just
Jason. Jason. Not only did he treat him like shit, but did they even mix bass into the music?
no, no. Lars was very clear about that, has been very clear that he purposely had the guy doing the mixing bury Jason in the mix.
I mean,
And that album sounds terrible as a result.
it
There's
didn't
no low end.
and didn't affect the sales. They continued
Nope.
to. I mean,
Nope.
what?
Because the songs are amazing. I mean, that's the album with one. I mean,
Mhm.
that might be the most well-written song they ever did.
And when you watch them in like when you watch them in the video and you see Jason in the video, all I keep thinking is, I see a man playing bass.
I don't hear any bass.
It's just brutal.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I think they, I think the Ride the Lightning album sounds good guitar wise. I think the Black album sounds really good guitar wise.
Oh,
I think
it's
that might have been the pinnacle of their tone.
oh, Bob Rock absolutely did wonders for them in a
Yeah, and
good and bad way. I
the
have to
other two
admit.
albums he did, the Load and Reload, not a big fan of the songs on those albums, but I think the guitars sounded great.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the rhythm guitars, again, you know, Kirk Hammett discovered the wah pedal, and that was just the end, the beginning of the end.
Yeah.
Not that not that he didn't use a wah in the past, because one of my favorite solos of his, several of my favorite solos of his do have wah pedals, like Battery.
Oh, does it really? I have to go
Yeah,
back and listen to that. I don't remember that.
I think it's Battery.
I might have
Maybe I'm
blacked it
talking
out.
out my ass. All right, so Wes, I think that does it with all our questions. I actually thought we had like 20 more on here.
I got one more.
Oh,
I
is
got
are
one
you
more. I got one more bad tone.
Ooh,
And I'm going to pick on this guitarist as being representative of the genre and style. And
okay.
I do not harbor any ill will, and I do not intend to slander, libel, or defame this person.
Holy Toledo. Do we have to
And
hire a lawyer? We don't have enough money for a lawyer.
Melissa Etheridge,
Really?
yeah, she played Ovation guitars, which
Hmm.
I already don't think sound very good acoustically.
Hmm.
Um, and apparently she recorded the electrified tone that was coming out of them. And I guess she was just plugging directly into the soundboard and not
Mm.
bothering to EQ anything.
What?
Great songwriter, passionate singer,
Hmm.
good guitar. I mean, really good rhythm guitar player.
Hmm.
But man, and it just, there was a period where that hard piezo electric acoustic sound was really in vogue, and
Okay.
it always sounded terrible. It always sounded terrible. It was
I,
just really easy to record because the acoustic guitar suddenly had a pickup.
right. I think, to be fair, if I'd have to assume, wouldn't it be the decision of whoever's behind the board? Oh, that's what we're gonna do. We're just gonna run it into the board. And like, would she really know the difference
Well,
back then?
I, I, I don't know.
Maybe
I
they
don't
were.
know.
I don't know either.
I have always known, but I don't assume everybody is as anal about their tone as I am.
Did she do this all the time, like every song, every record, until a
Oh,
certain
yeah,
point?
pretty much. Yeah, her entire early output sounded like this.
Okay.
But you listen to, let's do, I mean, you're not comparing apples to apples here, but similar genre, similar style, similar instrumentation. Indigo Girls,
Hmm.
their acoustic guitars did not sound terrible,
Right.
because when they went in the studio, they mic'd up their acoustic guitars and they played them, you know,
Yeah, how they're meant to be
how
recorded.
they're meant to be recorded.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So yeah, there were a bunch more questions, but I figured if we did 10, that would get us to about an hour and a half. And look where we are.
Wow, nicely done. And plus,
Do
that means we get to spend a whole lot of time on music that matters tonight, which I
Yeah.
think
Do
we're
you
going
want
to
to
want
pull
to.
out a Do you want to pull out a bonus question? Let me look at the other questions that we didn't answer. No, no, no. Yes. Are you even a real guitar player if you don't have gunk and debris collecting underneath your strings? Discuss. Second part of the question. Also, how do people clean this stuff up? It's awkward getting under the strings, but is it generally a matter of sending a rag under there and pulling it back and forth?
Did this really happen?
Are you even a
Are
real guitar
you
player if you don't
even?
have a filthy guitar?
Yes, you are, but a disgusting one.
Yeah. I mean, when you
Ah,
change the strings on your guitar, grab a sock
okay.
and knock the dust and grime off your, and every now and then give it a good cleaning,
Ah,
because if you leave your guitar dirty, eventually it's going to start to corrode.
yeah. Oh, it's disgusting.
And yeah, it's disgusting.
I
So,
don't.
and we talked at length at one point about guitar maintenance,
Yes, we did.
and we gave lots of ideas. I hope people go back to that episode and look
Please
at the
do.
ideas. It doesn't take a lot of complicated stuff, right? Some furniture polish and a clean rag. That's really all you need.
I mean, seriously. And there's so many really well made and interesting and original tools now these days for cleaning your guitars. The There's just no excuse for that finger gunk that builds up. Oh, it's disgusting. And
Oh,
you know
it
how many
really
get
is.
do you know how many guitars, Wes, do you remember this will trigger some PTSD, working in the shop and people bringing in these guitars and you just just have to fumigate them first
Oh,
before you
my boss used to charge people extra
really.
for working on dirty guitars. He would add $10 to the bill. He would just pad the parts by 10 or something like that, because
Oh,
he hated working on dirty guitars.
I used to. Did you ever do the razor blade thing on the fretboard where you and you
Yeah.
scrape down the months of built up gunk and
Yeah.
sweat?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
had
saved that in a baggie for the customer, and when he came to pick up his guitar, I said, "This is what I took off your fretboard. If you make me do this again, I will charge you extra."
wow.
Yeah,
I
in a
I
little
did
plastic
that.
bag.
I did that to a regular's guitar and he lost his mind. I'm not kidding. He
What,
said
he
I
wanted the
ruined
gunk
his
on there?
guitar. He said I ruined his guitar.
Really ruined
Yeah,
it.
by cleaning the fretboard.
Okay,
And
okay.
he was not kidding.
Have you ever seen a rosewood board that started to warp from that?
No, no, I haven't, because I've never let one get that bad.
No, not so. Yeah, I forget what it was. It might have been a Les Paul, go figure. It might have been a Strat, but definitely had a customer's guitar where the rosewood started to it started to dry up because it hadn't been moist, hadn't been
Yeah,
moisturized in such a long time,
because
and the
that gunk
frets.
keeps it out.
Yeah, and the frets started popping out,
I
and it
bet.
came in. He brought it in because a fret fell out of the guitar.
Oh no.
And he was like, I'm my frets are falling out of my guitar. It's like his teeth are falling out of his head. And you're like, yeah, you know why? Because the wood is dry as a bone and it's shrinking, and your frets
Yep.
have nothing to grab onto. Oh, it was so gross. All right. Is there
That's
another one you're
nasty.
going to make me answer?
No, no, I'm not going to make you answer.
You're
That's
not going to make
10,
me
10
answer the.
plus one bonus.
Okay. All right. I thought we thought we might go for one more.
I can't wait to get into music that matters this time.
All right. So you do the wrap up.
I'll do the wrap up. Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for letting us caress your ear holes with our mellifluous voices and our sometimes helpful, sometimes snarky answers to gear page questions. We're going to wrap this up for this episode. And we hope that you will like and comment and subscribe and do all of those fun things, especially the comment. Share with us your answers to some of these questions. I want to know what the grossest guitar you ever saw was.
Ugh.
And I want to know if you think strings matter. And I want to know where you come down on the guy who wanted to know what guitar was best for his 80s cover band.
And who has the worst tone? I want to
And
know
who
that.
has the worst tone.
Bring it. And if you say
Yeah.
me, well, fair play to
And
you.
we'll see you again as soon as Andy tells us where to find us on the internet.
differentstringspodcast.com, please, and thank you.